into another edition of Bet. I'm your host, Anita Marks. We got Eric Moody, who's going to be joining us, talk a little NBA, getting you ready for the NBA draft. Also, Ben Baby, who covers the Cincinnati Bengals, will be joining us as well. We'll talk a little NFL futures odds out there. Let's bring in Eric. Eric, good afternoon. How you doing? We've got, of course, another game scheduled tomorrow night for the Celtics and the Miami Heat. So really, we got to hold off on those futures odds in regard to really taking a look at what the NBA championship is going to look like. So I thought maybe we'd spend some time talking about the NBA draft. What do you say?
Yeah, let's do it. And I'm also excited to see that upcoming game between the Heat and the Celtics. But come on, we shouldn't be shocked that Boston won, right?
I'm not shocked. Although I did pull out my broom on Daily Wager yesterday. But nonetheless, all right, let's dive into it. As we know, the Wemby sweepstakes have been won, and that's the Spurs. They won the ping pong lottery. And so we know Wemby is going to go number 1 overall to the Spurs. So let's put that on the shelf. Let's really talk about the guessing game. And really the draft, let's be honest, starts at 2. The Charlotte Hornets will be on the clock. And let's take a look at who's favored here to go number 2 overall. Brandon Miller, SEC Player of the Year, right? 6'9", a guard who really can facilitate. It's exactly what the Hornets need and can mix in well with LaMelo Ball. You've got Henderson at even money. Thompson, Walker, Black. These are the guys that are expected to go in the top 5 picks. Who do you have going number 2 to Charlotte?
Yeah, I actually have Brandon Miller going number 2 to Charlotte. I think it's a great fit. And I will tell you, Anita, whenever I evaluate NBA prospects, there are 2 crucial factors that stand out to me. First one being positional size and also outside shooting. So if you look at Miller, for example, this is a player who's at 6'9". He fits the bill perfectly as a wing player in the NBA. Not only that, I really love his outside shooting skills. They're off the charts in my opinion. But whether he's shooting on the move, off the dribble, or in catch and shoot scenarios, Miller really excels in all areas. He's also very versatile, which I like. His mid-range game isn't bad at all, and he also excels in pick and roll situations. On top of that, he's a solid rebounder. Now you look at what he was able to accomplish in the SEC. He actually led the SEC in scoring last year with 18.8 points per game. He also had 8.2 rebounds and 2.1 assists. So picture this. He's a great complement to LaMelo Ball, the Hornets' lead playmaker. This could be a duo, Anita, that down the road, 2 or 3 years from now, we can be talking as one of the top 10 duos in the NBA. So I think it's a great pickup. If I'm betting money, I'm betting on Brandon Miller to get selected number 2 to go into the Hornets.
And again, you can get that at -140. All right, let's take a look at who you think is going to go number 3 overall. The Portland Trailblazers will be on the clock. Let's take a look again at some of those odds. And a guy that many like is Scoot Henderson, right? Many people are calling this a 3-man draft with Scoot Henderson being there as well. My question is he a really good fit with Damian Lillard? Will Damian Lillard even be on the Trailblazers in the next 2 years? I guess that's a conversation for a different show. But who do you have going number 3 overall?
Yeah, I actually do have Scoot Henderson going number 3 to the Portland Trailblazers. He was dominant in the G League. And hey, I am in the camp that I do believe that Damian Lillard will be traded. But one thing about Henderson that I like is that I guess he's like a force to be reckoned with on the basketball court. I think that's a good way to put it. He really dominates with his power, with his competitiveness. He's always finding a way, I would say, Anita, to penetrate the defense and really keep his opponents guessing. Watch out for his explosive finishes at the rim as well. He's dominant in that regard. But I will tell you, 2 characteristics that really set Henderson apart from some of the other top draft picks, I would say, are his work ethic and also his leadership qualities. He's the definition of what I would call an alpha player, someone that wants to set the tone for his team. And all signs indicate that he's destined for stardom at the next level in the NBA. Just imagine, he's a perfect fit for this young core that the Portland Trailblazers have put together. So if I'm going to bet on the number 3 pick, it will be Scoot Henderson.
Which, by the way, again, just a reminder, you can get it minus 104. Now we get into pick number 4. The odds get a little tighter here. The Houston Rockets on the clock. Thompson is favored here, right? Most physically gifted prospect in this draft. Many feel lots of versatility here. So, and minus 145. Is this where you see Thompson going?
It is. So I really love Amen Thompson in his game, and I do see him going to the Rockets. And really, here's why, Anita. I'm like, Houston desperately needs a point guard, and Thompson is an excellent fit, in my opinion. So let's talk about Thompson. I'm like, he's a 6'7" gem with a wide range of skills, and he's a natural facilitator. He reminds me a lot of the NBA legend Scottie Pippen. You look at today's NBA, the modern game, I would say versatility is really important, as well as floor spacing. Those two things are key, and those are two things that Thompson, can bring to the table in Houston. I'm like, he's got the size, he's got the athleticism, he's got the versatility. He's an invaluable asset, in my opinion. I think the only thing that he needs to work on, just to really hone his game, is his shooting. But imagine if he really works on his shooting in year 1 and year 2 of the type of player that he can become. I mean, he could be a future star in this league.
Like I said, a lot of people feel it's a 3-man draft. It will be fun and interesting to see where all these very talented collegiate basketball players go. All right, we're going to add a third party. Talk about a 3-man team. We're adding a third-man party to Bet. We're bringing in Ben Baby, who does a phenomenal job covering the Cincinnati Bengals, a team that I think is going to win the Super Bowl this year. So, Ben, I'm hoping we get you on Bet quite frequently this season. Guys, always fun to talk about the over-unders in regard to win totals in the NFL. So Ben, we're going to start with you, and then Moody will go to you as well. I want to know, guys, think about what's your favorite over win total in the NFL. Ben, you're up.
You know, Anita, for me, I like the Atlanta Falcons, and I know that might be a little risky on some of these books, given that you see them at minus 135 in some places, but I really like what Atlanta's done. Obviously, they went out and they got a running back in the first round in Bijan Robinson, but more importantly, I like the defensive additions that they made, and one of those guys that I really like is Jesse Bates, a guy I know well. He was at Cincinnati. Atlanta gave him a ton of money to shore up their secondary, and the amount of schematic flexibility that Jesse Bates brings to the table is key. They brought in Trey Flowers from that Bengals secondary as well, but when you look at their offensive assets, maybe a leap for Kyle Pitts, and if Desmond Ridder can find some good footing, there is some good odds that this team can continue to make some leaps and bounds, and I like the Falcons in that spot.
Moody, you're up. What's your favorite NFL win total over heading into this season?
Yeah, I would say my favorite one, Anita, is the Pittsburgh Steelers to surpass 8.5 wins. And here's why. All Mike Tomlin does is finish at 500 or better. I'm like, you look at Tomlin last season. He delivered a 9-win season last year where he had a rookie quarterback in Kenny Pickett, suboptimal offensive line, and only 10 games with TJ Watt on defense. So I do expect this offense to be more explosive in 2023 with Pickett in year 2. You've got an improved offensive line. You've got Najee Harris, who should be healthier. And you look at Pickett, he's got great wide receivers in Deontay Johnson and George Pickens. Also, any defense that's built around Minkah Fitzpatrick and TJ Watt is going to be above average, in my opinion. So I would bet the over on the Steelers win total.
Were you looking at my notes today, Eric? Was that what you were doing? I meant lockstep. This was out of all the 32 teams, you and I picked the same team that we like the win total. Unbelievable. 11th easiest schedule heading into the season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And also, they're going to benefit. They have a 7-day rest advantage over their opponents this season. They went over 7.5 wins last year. I think Kenny Pickett picks up where he left off, even though Ben Roethlisberger was hoping that he would not do well last season. Wow, talk about honesty. But nonetheless, you talk about this defense. They get better in the draft, drafting Joey Porter Jr., they get better offensively in the draft. They leaped ahead of the Jets, who wanted Broderick Jones, offensive lineman, one of the best offensive tackles coming out this year. They get him. And Darnell Washington, that tight end from Georgia, watch out, the guy's a beast. So I really do like this Steelers team. And I'm sorry, one more thing. They play the NFC West and the AFC South. So they've got one of, again, the softest schedules in the NFL. Ben, baby, let's get back to you. We've given a lot of love to those teams in the NFL. Now comes the negative. Where are you looking at that you do not like, that you're going to go under the win total that the odds makers have placed?
Now, Anita, this might be a little near and dear to your heart, but I'm taking the Jets at the under. And I know that may not be a very popular take here, but I just don't know where these things are going to stand. We know that the Jets brought in Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, they have Nathaniel Hackett, a guy who knows Rodgers really well, and they're banking on Rodgers lifting that team. And we all saw that the Jets, had they had a better quarterback last year, probably were going to be in playoff contention. But I'm very curious to see how that whole team is going to shape up. That is not going to be an easy division. The AFC East, always difficult. And at plus 120 in some cases, I just like the value when you look at that, and when you look at some of the more favorable odds. Given where the Jets are at, there's no guarantee that Rodgers is going to immediately come in and boost that team as a whole. So, you know what? It may be a little bit risky, but give me the Jets at 120.
Interesting. Eric, what say you?
I am going with the Los Angeles Rams under 7.5 wins. So last season, let's talk about the Rams. Like, they had key injuries to players like Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, members of their offensive and defensive line. And you look at the Rams, I'm like, they're facing some serious challenges, in my opinion. They've got a limited number of draft picks. They got a head coach in Sean McVay who may or may not retire soon. And they also have an aging quarterback in Matthew Stafford. Besides that, I'm like, their defense wasn't great last season. And you know what? It's likely to be worse this year. And the Rams roster from top to bottom, when I analyze it, in my opinion, it's one of the worst in the league, even with Stafford and Kupp back. So I would end up taking the under here on the win total for LA.
Brace yourself, gentlemen, because I know this is going to come as a shock to a lot of people, but I'm going with the San Francisco 49ers. I'm going under 10.5 wins. First and foremost, quarterback to me is the most important position in all of professional sport. And now this is a 49ers team coming in with some big question marks in regard to their quarterback, right? Purdy coming off of that elbow surgery. Is he going to be ready to go? Not to mention, dude was Mr. Irrelevant, was last taken in his draft class. Then you've got Trey Lance, who I feel is not ready for the NFL, still not ready, coming off of his knee injury from last season. Is it going to be Sam Darnold? I can't believe in any of them. And then this is really interesting. The San Francisco 49ers have the worst rest advantage in the NFL. 20 fewer days of rest than their opponents. Last three teams last season had a negative 10 days rest, and all three of those teams, the Patriots, the Texans, and the Packers, all finished below their win total. They play 4 teams, count them, 4 teams coming off of a bye. Cleveland, Cincinnati, Jacksonville, Arizona. 3 of those 4 are on the road. And 3 of those 4 are teams that I think are going to make it into the postseason. So it's their schedule. The NFL did no justice to the 49ers in regard to their schedule. So because of that, and my question marks in regard to their quarterback situation, I'm going under the win total for the San Francisco 49ers. Guys, let's have some fun here. Let's play a little game called Take Your Pick. And Ben, we're going to start with you. Eagles or the Kansas City Chiefs go 17-0 this season. Both are 35-1. We almost saw it last season with the Eagles. So Ben, would you play, take your pick, if you were going to play, would it be on the Eagles or would it be on Kansas City going undefeated this coming season?
First off, Anita, we're always having fun on bets, so that goes without saying. Secondly, give me those Eagles. And when you look at it, you look at their strength of schedule. Our ESPN FPI has them significantly with an easier schedule than that of Kansas City. And quite frankly, you look at it, they're in the NFC East. Growing up in Dallas, being very well familiar with that division, we know that always hasn't been the best division in recent years. And I do think the Eagles, they are going to be in a good spot. The tricky part's going to be when they have Kansas City and Buffalo back-to-back. However, you brought up all these rest days. The Eagles are going to have one of those teams coming off a bye going into 11-12. And so given where they're at, being in the NFC, I like Philly if between those two.
Eric?
You know what, Anita? I am going to go with the Chiefs here. So I'm going to go with the opposite of what Ben said. And one thing about the Chiefs, they got Patrick Mahomes, one of the top quarterback, or I would say the top quarterback in the game right now. Got a great head coach and creative offensive mind in Andy Reid. And one thing about the Chiefs, once they've had Mahomes under center, they've had 5 seasons, consecutive seasons with 12 or more wins. Now, the Chiefs' defense isn't perfect. We know their offense is a juggernaut, but their defense isn't perfect, but it complements the offense very well. It reminds me of the Colts with Peyton Manning in his prime, for where the goal of the offense is really to score as many points as possible, and the defense can really pin their ears back and really pressure opponents. So that's the playbook that they're running here, and you know what? It's working. So I would back the Chiefs. If you make me choose out of these two teams to go 17-0, I'm going with the Chiefs here.
All right, so that makes me the tiebreaker, and I got to go with Ben Baby here. I got to fly, Eagles, fly. Go Birds. I got to go with this Eagles team. I was fading them actually until the NFL draft, and they just locked and reloaded. Howie's unbelievable when it comes to drafting. And so, and then they bring in DeAndre Swift. Boy, I think their offense is going to be explosive. Defense is going to be great. So I would lean towards the Eagles. Number 2, the Bills start 5-0. You can get that at plus 650. Or the Bengals. Ben Baby, your Bengals start 5-0 at 6-1. Ben, which one would you choose? Which one would you play?
Anita, I got to look over my shoulder and make sure that nobody in Cincinnati can hear me, because I'm taking Buffalo here. And let me tell you why. The Bengals, when you look at their schedule, they start the season week 1 and 2 with divisional opponents. You go to Cleveland, and then Baltimore comes to Cincinnati. That's a very tricky start to the year. And again, looking at our ESPN FPI, they like the Bills more favorably in those first 5 games. I think Buffalo's ability to maneuver through the early part of the schedule, because of their level of opponents, I think that's going to be an easier slate than what the Bengals are going to have, especially with a couple teams that have given them problems over the years.
Eric?
You know what? I was smiling as Ben was breaking that down, because I'm actually going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals here. And so you look at the Bengals. They're obviously a talented team with a very high ceiling. You look at the postseason runs that they've had over the last 2 seasons. I'm like, this is a team where you got Joe Burrow under center, franchise quarterback. He's entering his prime. He's surrounded by offensive playmakers. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. He's got Joe Mixon that's still there. And the Bengals also have a top 10 defense, in my opinion. What I've loved about Cincinnati is that they've really done a tremendous job, I'd say, about stockpiling defensive talent through free agency and the draft. And I also don't think their schedule is as daunting, as Ben mentioned. I know they play the Browns, they play the Ravens, 2 teams they're very familiar with, division opponents, but then they've got the Rams, Titans, and Cardinals. So if I had to choose between the Bills and Bengals to start 5-0, my money's going to go to Cincinnati.
All right, yet again, I'm the tiebreaker, and I'm going to go Cincinnati as well. I'm looking at that Bills schedule. I think people are sleeping on the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think those last 2 games against Miami and the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think the Bills are going to have a tough time. Miami on paper just looks so good. I think the first 5 weeks, if Tua can still stay healthy, I think Miami has a good shot of really challenging the Buffalo Bills. Last but not least, guys, I'm wearing the rookie Bryce Young for a reason. Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, more passing yards. Both are at minus 115. Take your pick. Ben Baby, we'll start with you again.
Anita, again, I'm going to have to go against a team from my hometown, or from my native Lone Star State. Give me Bryce Young. Give me the Panthers here. Let me tell you why. I like the receivers that Bryce Young will have at his disposal. I think bringing in Hayden Hurst is such a great asset for a young quarterback, a tight end, a reliable guy who can be explosive, work those seam routes. I saw what he was able to do in Cincinnati. I think he's going to be a great asset. And that offensive line, I know that the Texans have really strong tackles as well, but I just think what Carolina has done, and then bringing in Frank Reich, and being in a division which I know that, they're somewhat comparable, but I think that Carolina is going to be probably in more games. They're going to be willing to throw it around a little bit more. I think the Texans still might be a year or 2 away from really being competitive, so give me Bryce Young.
Eric?
Well, you know what? I was smiling ear to ear as Ben was breaking that down, because we are calibrated here. I'm going with Bryce Young, to finish with more passing yards than CJ Stroud. Like, here's my rationale. I'm like, you've got Young. He's got better receiving playmakers, in my opinion. He's got DJ Shark. He's got Adam Thielen, Terrence Marshall Jr., Laviska Shenault, Hayden Hurst, all players who have had success at one point in time at the NFL level. Now, also with Young, I'm like, he's playing in one of the worst divisions in the league, the NFC South. It was horrendous last year. But also, I like the fact that he's protected by a solid offensive line in Carolina, and they're bringing back all 5 of their starters in 2023. So I am backing Bryce Young here.
Yeah, we are 3 for 3 here. I just think Bryce Young, more accurate, more NFL ready, and I do believe that he's going to start and play as long as he stays healthy. As CJ Stroud still has Davis Mills and Case Keenum behind him. Not really sure if CJ Stroud will get the start at the start of the season. So 3 for 3, we are all on Bryce Young. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Always great having you on Bet. All right, as always, we like to end the show with Before I Let You Go. And let's talk some golf. Why? We've got the Charles Schwab that's teeing off tomorrow. It is at Colonial Country Club in Texas. It's a Parkland-style course. What does that mean? Tree-lined, small greens. This is really interesting. From tee to the greens is Bermuda grass. Once you get on the greens, it's bent grass. One of the few courses that have that type of grass designation. They've got 2 par 5s, pretty long, pretty challenging. Knowledge is imperative. No debutantes here. The 2 metrics that I keep a really big eye on: driving accuracy as well as putting. So with that being said, here are my par 3, my favorite 3 bets heading into the Charles Schwab. Give me Fleetwood. This dude is flying under everybody's radar. You get him to finish in the top 20 at plus 130. Finished top 18 at Oak Hill last week. Last 9 starts, 5 top 20s. Fits this track extremely well. Finished tied for 35 back in 2002. Played well at the Austin Country Club, which correlates with this track as well. And if his putter gets hot, watch out. I think there's a chance that Fleetwood could actually win this bad boy. Give me Justin Rose as well to finish in the top 20. Has won here before, tied for 9th at Oak Hill, so he's coming in with his game really on point. And last but not least, to finish in the top 30, another guy, I'm looking at these guys that are flying low on the radar, making some noise this season. That's Eric Cole. You can get him to finish in the top 30 at plus 165, tied for 15th last week, and plus 8.75 in strokes gained tee to green. Really unbelievable. His last 4 starts, he's got 3 top 25s, top 5 he finished in Mexico, and his iron play has been fantastic. So keep an eye on, again, Fleetwood and Rose to finish in the top 20, and Eric Cole to finish in the top 30. Enjoy that tournament for sure. Again, I want to thank Ben Baby as well as Eric Moody, who joined us today on Bet. Everybody, we're getting you ready for, of course, the NBA draft, some NFL, and some golf. Hopefully you've enjoyed the program. We'll be back with you on Friday as well. We'll see you then.